So over 700 people see a strange UFO-like object floating in the sky. The government refuses to investigate it, and one councilwoman is even tormented for trying to get down to the bottom of it. The event isn't publicized until months later and is addressed as a supposed UFO sighting. But at that point, is it even a supposed sighting? If 700 people saw it, I'd say it was legit. I mean, I'm sure news stations were trying to keep everyone calm by trying to brush it off. Or were they trying to hide something? Let's find out. So this UFO watching shindig happened on March 13th, 1997, which was a Thursday. But I was hoping it would be on Friday because the idea of this happening on Friday the 13th is a little bit more eerie. Anyway, at around 7, a guy from Henderson, Nevada was the first person who supposedly saw this V-shaped object in the sky. And I know Henderson isn't Phoenix, but most of the sightings were in Phoenix, so that's where the name comes from. Okay, so the dude sees a weird thing in the sky. He said it looked as big as a plane and it sounded like rushing wind. Am I missing something, or is the guy literally just describing a plane? He also reported seeing 6 lights on the edge of this mysterious flying object and mentioned they were traveling from the northwest to the southeast. 20 minutes later, a retired cop from Paulden, Arizona, which again isn't Phoenix, but it's nearby, so said he saw a cluster of mysterious lights in the sky. He was the first one who actually called about the sightings, even though Mr. Henderson, Nevada said he was the first one to see it. I bet the retired cop was the first one to call in because he probably just wanted to talk to his old friends at the station. Like, I love bugging my old coworkers. You know how that goes. I mean, there's just something about going to an old job and being able to talk to your old coworkers. I've been there. So the retired cop claimed to have seen 5 lights in total, 4 in line with each other and a 5th trailing behind. He said they looked orange or reddish. Well, after Mr. X cop called in about the weird lights, everyone and their mother started making calls to the National UFO Reporting Center about the same thing. Okay, seriously, how am I just now finding out that we have a National UFO Reporting Center? Why is that like not more public? And how do I apply to work there? Because that seems like such a fun job to have. So everyone who was calling about the weird orbs in the sky at first were from the Paulden area. At this point, I'm second guessing why they're called the Phoenix Lights. Like, can we just say general Arizona, Nevada area lights to cover all the bases? Well, whatever you want to call this event, the people who were making reports all gave various descriptions of what they actually saw. They were all along the lines of eerie lights making up a V shape in the sky that were heading southwest. And most people said the mysterious lights made up one big floating craft that moved slowly and made no sound whatsoever. That is interesting. Because if it were a plane, they definitely would have heard it. So then what's something big that could be slowly floating in the sky without making any noise? Oh, and I forgot to mention that these weren't just random superstitious strangers who were calling the UFO reporting center. A lot of them were pilots, police officers, and military personnel. So these people, they knew their shit. Well, finally, someone from Phoenix reported the floating craft. Hallelujah! I was just about to lose my cool as someone from Phoenix didn't come up in the story soon. It's like when someone puts LA in their Instagram bio when they actually live 30 miles away in Pomona. Stop lying, sis. You don't live in LA. So a Phoenix-based couple and their grandson reported seeing the lights. They first thought it was a balloon, but as it got closer, they noticed the same V shape everyone else saw. Come on, Phoenix people, you're late to the UFO sighting party. Like, we've already known this already. Seriously, the threesome? The 3 of them said that they first saw it at a distance, but as time passed, the floating craft looked like it was coming right down their street. They said it was hovering a little over 100 feet above them and wasn't making any noise. 100 feet? That's like super close. I can't decide if I'd be packing up my shit and fleeing or if I'd stand out there and try to get abducted by aliens, because I'll be honest, a vacation does sound pretty nice right now, especially outside of the US. As more time passed, the group said that the object passed over them and disappeared in the mountains. Alright, so there were actually 2 different mysterious light sightings from that night. The first happened at about 7 and was of 5 V-shaped lights that were hovering in the sky and moving. The second happened around 10 and was a group of 5 to 9 lights that were hovering in the sky in one specific spot right above Phoenix. The lights were seen blinking on and off at random times, and not all at once. In both occurrences, the majority of people said they couldn't actually see the object that the lights were attached to, but they said you could see the outline of it. That's eerie. So witnesses also mentioned the lights were kind of blurry, almost like they were kind of like gas of some sort. Some said the string of orbs were V-shaped. Others said that they were shaped kind of like a boomerang. And one girl compared them to a mall floating over her house. Yeah, literally a shopping mall. Out of everything in the world you could compare something to, you choose a mall? It's a weird flex. We get that you shop, but okay. So even though most people thought it was one object, others thought the lights themselves were individually floating entities. So one truck driver from Phoenix said he saw 2 top-shaped orbs surrounded by red rings of lights floating in the sky by the nearby Air Force Base. Then 3 jets took off from the base, and one of the orbs looked like it was chasing after one of the jets until it shot up into the sky and disappeared. I really want to believe this guy, but his story is a bit different different from all the others. It's also pretty out there, and since the guy's a truck driver, that means he spends long hours driving alone, so I'm sure he's a little sleep deprived and also lonely. But wait until you hear what he told interviewers about his experience. He said, "I'll never be the same. Before this, if anybody had told me they saw a UFO, I would have said, yeah, and I believe in the tooth fairy. Now I've got a whole new view, and I may be just a dumb truck driver, but I've seen something that doesn't belong here." Okay, so is it weird that I think I love this man and like I want to be his friend? Like, he's funny, he's charming, and he's honest. I mean, what more could you really ask for from a friend? So a few days after the sightings, air traffic controllers at the Phoenix airport So a few days after the sightings, the air traffic controllers at the Phoenix airport told reporters and UFO investigators that there was nothing on their radar that night. That's crazy. Like, I wonder if any planes flying over the area saw anything. People from one of the Air Force bases in the area said that there were no military aircraft sent up that night. But 2 months later, their story changed and they said this person working that night didn't look at the correct logbook. And it took them 2 months to figure that out? I mean, that seems suspicious to me. Like, whatever was in the sky that night, a lot of people saw it, and a lot of people recorded it too. All of the known pictures and videos are from the second sighting, where the lights were hovering above Phoenix. In the videos, you can clearly see the strange orbs that people had been describing, but none of them were taken using equipment for scientific analysis, so it's kind of hard to tell much on a technical level. I bet it was a bunch of middle-aged dads in light-washed jeans and white New Balances with their camcorders. Like, this was probably the most exciting thing for suburban Arizonians. One UFO researcher claimed that he performed a spectral analysis of the pictures and videos from that night and concluded that the lights were not from a man-made source. But several sources pointed out that it is impossible to determine that information from the footage people took. Basically, regular cameras get rid of all the light outside of the visible spectrum, and in order to do a spectral analysis, you need all the lights from the full spectrum. Oh my god, and the dude who made the software that the UFO researcher supposedly used even admitted that his platform isn't capable of determining something like that. Wait, isn't this so funny and also so tragic? Like, this poor UFO superfan is just trying to get other people on board with his passion, but he missed the mark. Like, that had to be so embarrassing that the guy who literally made the program that the UFO dude used was like, nah, my app can't do that. Videos and pictures of the lights hit a few news stations days after the event, but there really wasn't much coverage on this phenomenon until later. That's super sketchy to me. Like, it's one of the craziest things to ever happen in that area and no one is covering it in the news. It makes me really wonder what's really going on. Were they trying to play both sides and not admit to believing in UFOs and aliens, or were they trying to cover up something for the government? Speaking of the government, a Phoenix councilwoman apparently brought up the mysterious lights at a meeting and asked if anyone knew what it was and if there was going to be an investigation. They brushed off her question and continued on with other topics. After the meeting, the councilwoman said that a city manager went up to her and told her, "You shouldn't have asked that question." Thanks, but did she ask for your feedback? I don't think so. Like, let the woman speak for herself. Like, damn, like, oh my god, wait. Please tell me she pulled a Kamala and said, "Let me finish." Oh, and after this whole situation where these city officials tried to silence this councilwoman, an Arizona newspaper literally published a cartoon making fun of her. The cartoon was a drawing of her wearing a button that said, "I love UFOs." She was also harassed and teased at work about the whole thing. I'm sorry, but what the hell is wrong with these people? This woman literally brought up a hot topic in the city that was being ignored, and they just turn around and bully her? It's stories like this that make me realize how much work we still have to do as a society. So the Phoenix Lights phenomenon wasn't really covered in the news until June, when USA Today published a huge cover spread about the event. Once that came out, the whole country got word about the crazy occurrence and just about lost it. Some people were convinced it was aliens. Others believed it must have been military flares, and some thought they were just weather balloons. Oh, seriously, if Facebook was around during this time, I can't even imagine what the comment section would be like. Like, that's something that I would want to read. Anyway, people across the country started following the story and demanded answers. The Arizona governor held a press conference to address the situation. He said he knew what was responsible and told them to come out for everyone to look at. Then someone dressed up as an alien stepped up on stage. Yeah, he literally had someone come out in an alien costume during a press conference. I'm shook over this. Like, a government official came out on live television to mock an event that people are actually really freaked out about. That sounds familiar. The crazy part about all of this is that 10 years later, this same guy who brought out a fake alien actually admitted to seeing the lights firsthand and said he saw a UFO. First of all, how did he switch from making fun of UFOs and aliens in a televised press conference to saying he believed in them 100%? And why did it take him 10 years to come up with that? Maybe he wasn't getting as much attention as he used to and wanted some extra clout. So the official explanation that was given about the lights that night is that the Air Force was doing a training exercise where they dropped military flares, which is what they said the people were seeing. Okay, then why did people never mention seeing weird lights every time they drop flares? Like, why did these flares, in particular, make over 700 people call about a possible UFO sighting? One of the pilots described the formation by saying the flares go where the wind blows. Okay, so the wind blew these flares into a perfect V formation? Interesting. Oh, and don't forget the Air Force Base that supposedly hosted the exercise initially reported that there were no aircraft out at the time and changed their statement 2 months later. So the plane that apparently dropped the flares that night wasn't even in the air until about 10 p.m. So that wouldn't explain the first sightings at 7 p.m. The only explanation people have for the first sighting is that some random guy said he was looking through a telescope at the first set of lights and saw aircrafts in the sky. But literally no one else reported seeing anything like that, and even the Air Force Base didn't make up that they had planes in the sky at that time either. So that's weird. So it seems like the Air Force tried to cover up the whole thing, but then something leaked. That's scandalous. The morning after the incident, one of their airmen came forward with a wild story. He said that they got a call at 8:32 that night reporting a mass in the air that almost hit an aircraft. Oh my god, wait, is that what my trucker friend saw? They apparently sent 2 planes to check out what was going on, and when the planes returned, one of the pilots looked sheepish. When people asked the pilot what he saw, he said there was a mysterious floating object that had 5 lights and a V pattern. Okay, so he saw exactly what all 700 other people saw. And I'm not sure what ended up happening to the anonymous airman who reported this, but the Air Force denied the statement, so I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here and say that the dude probably got fired and blacklisted. So the whole military flare thing is literally the explanation they've stuck with all these years, and it isn't the only time strange V-shaped lights have been seen in the sky. Apparently some people saw the same UFO-like object days before the big sighting, and in Belgium, there are multiple reports almost identical to this story, where people saw the same thing in the sky. Those sightings were 7 years before this one. Well, all the signs are pointing to the aliens, and it seems like the government just keeps trying to cover it up. And not just by making up a story about the Air Force. No, the government actually created a secretive program for advanced aerospace threat identification. What is it with all these UFO organizations I never know about? Well, this specific government-funded initiative was created in 2002. They poured millions of dollars into researching unidentified flying objects until the program was shut down in 2007. But the government didn't release this information until 2017. That's 10 years later. So they must be hiding something. But what or who? Well, thanks to this story, I think I now have a crush on a random truck driver, and I want to quit my job so I can go work at a national UFO reporting center. I'm gonna eat this tiramisu, but before I do, don't forget to keep an eye out for those weird lights floating in the sky. This story had a lot of layers, just like this tiramisu.